The Citizen Mike Show. News. Commentary. Interviews. Citizen Mike Show starts now.
Hey, welcome to the Citizen Mike Show. Thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. My name is Mike Brudzinski. On my right, the editor of the Record Journal, Ralph Tomaselli, and a special guest in the studio tonight. Everyone knows her. Yes, you do. Mary Mushinsky, state representative representing the mighty 85th Assembly District. Mary, thanks for coming back.
I'm happy to be here with you, Mike, even if you made me take off my green scarf because it messes with the camera.
Can't wear green on the Citizen Mike Show because of the special effects. Like where we are right now producing the show is in front of Town Hall in April of last year. That dates back to like April 16, because I think you can see the blossoms popping up.
Right.
Yep.
And of course they're not out yet, so I took an old photo. Anyway, long story.
Okay.
Got a lot of stuff to cover, Mary. Sort of the big overriding question is what kind of grades the governor gets. Ned Lamont, how do you see his performance so far?
Well, he gets good marks for openness. He does have an open door policy, and he has invited groups of us in, and we go in and make our pitch on this and that bill, and then he'll say, well, what do you think I should do about that? Or, give me eight or nine ideas that I could do about that. And then he just sits and listens, and somebody else is probably taking notes, and we just tell him what we think he should do next, and he takes careful note of it. And he's done this with progressives and moderates and conservatives and special interest groups, and he seems to be encouraging more. He's not wedded to any one thing. He's encouraging different ways to do stuff.
Let me put another angle on it and push me back a little bit on this. So he's working y'all. I mean, he's working y'all. He came up with a budget and he has these plans, but he's still inviting y'all in. And
yeah, we're not crazy about some of the stuff in his budget.
And he can't listen to everybody. He can't, follow the directions of the conservatives, the moderates, and the progressives. So
well, he just has to, and we'd have to come up with a budget that balances.
Right.
So if we don't like some of the stuff on his list, and we don't, then we chuck those and come up with something that comes up with the same dollar amount in the end.
All right. Well, you give him good grades for openness, but how about the substance of his budget so far? Sales taxes, I mean, there's more sales taxes. And you're happy with that? Tolls, you happy with that? We'll get into tolls in about 20 minutes.
Well, one of the things he talks about is that the sales tax is structured on the old way of doing business in Connecticut, which was heavily manufacturing. And now we have more of a service economy, and he says the sales tax should reflect the service economy.
And you agree?
Well, it may be more trouble than it's worth to add all these new services. For example, legal services, accounting services, architectural.
Real estate? Is that still?
Yeah, real estate is on here.
That's a big ticket.
I've already heard from.
Oh, boy.
I've already heard from the realtors. Yeah, interior design, barber shops, laundry, even the coin-operated laundry.
But as a basket, basket of proposals, are you giving that high grades, or you're giving that sort of low grades?
I don't like some of them in here, and my colleagues don't like other ones. Some of them are positive. For example, taxing e-cigarettes the same as we tax regular cigarettes. That makes a lot of sense to me. We're going to raise the age to 21 for cigarettes. I know it's happened in Wallingford already, but we're talking about doing it at the state level too. That actually reduces tax because the kids aren't smoking now, so we're actually going to lose money there.
Right.
But but there's some troublesome things here that I made a promise on that I am not going to go back on. And last year we did the exemption for Social Security income and for the pension and annuity income. And those are on the list here to eliminate. So I'm not going to go back on my word. I said I'm going to do this, I'm going to vote for this, and I'm going to protect it in the next budget.
Walk us through, go a little bit slower and a little more specifics of where you stand and where he stands, because that
Okay,
got by
well,
me.
I supported, in the budget last year, I supported the exemption for Social Security income.
Meaning you don't get taxed on Social Security income.
Right. And,
Okay, I just wanted to get
and
that.
the pension and annuity income. And then we also...
Well, wait, and he, the governor, Lamont, wants to tax that,
he wants to eliminate the exemption. And,
which means taxes on Social Security.
Yeah, so it raises, it raises $24 million in the first year and 17 in the second year for the Social Security, and 32 in the pension line. It raises 32 million in the first year and 41 in the second year, but we would be going back on our commitment.
Sure. So
and I can't do that.
He's got trouble with you then, Ralph?
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the fact that I think you said he doesn't seem to be wed to anything.
No, I don't think he is. I think he's flexible.
And I agree. So Mike mentioned sales tax, and I just wanted to click off maybe a few other things that might be important to the budget, and let me know if you think there's something that these are things that the governor would accept. We mentioned sales tax. How about increasing the income tax on top earners?
Yeah, he doesn't want to do that. I did bring that up in some budget discussions already.
Okay.
In fact, I brought it up today.
So that's a no.
But he is willing to look at changing exemptions. I think he has signaled that. So
I want
if people,
go ahead, Mary. I'm sorry.
well, if people are getting exemptions for particular thing, and we end that, then you
It's
can
a tax
still raise.
increase.
You can, yeah, it's an increase and it raises money, but it's not an increase in the tax rate. So
it's slick. You pay more taxes on the same amount
you've
of
lost.
income.
You may
You've lost
lose an exemption. So that means you are going to pay more, but it doesn't. So he could accept something like that, I think, without breaking his word of not changing the income tax.
What about getting savings from state employees? Is that something he would
That's
accept?
been happening every single negotiation.
Any new initiatives on his part, do you think?
I don't know what he is talking with them about, but trying to find an example here for you.
No, I think that's okay. I'm just trying to get your feel on whether you think these things would be acceptable to him.
Yeah, one of the things I think would probably fly is anything that has gone to digital sales. That hurts the local businesses, and also we're losing the revenue. So if you're buying something over the internet, for example, downloading music or a movie or something, we could put a sales tax on that, because you're competing now with the people that are selling DVDs and movies in the bricks and mortar stores.
Okay.
Mary, would you be in favor of raising the income tax on what I call the super rich, 1/2% on couples that have a family income of $1 million per year?
I would definitely do it. But what has been pointed out...
And I don't care right now what he thinks. I want to know. I
No,
want to know what you think.
I'd say most of us in the caucus would do that.
Yeah.
However, there is a issue with the ultra rich called volatility. They have money in investments, and their investments go up and down, and they are considered volatile revenue sources because you can't predict where they're going to go. So we've already decided legislatively, we already passed a law, that the volatile revenues have to go into the rainy day fund because they're unpredictable. And then the non-volatiles you can count. So in that group of people, the most wealthy, 80% of their income is volatile and 20% is not.
But I'm on a slightly different tack.
So it doesn't help the budget.
Yeah, it doesn't help the budget. You would vote for a budget that, if needed to balance and maybe to trade off on some of these things you have a quarrel with, you would vote in favor of increasing the income tax on those earning more than $1 million per year by 0.5% for every dollar above
Yeah,
$1 million a year.
I would, but
Okay.
I'm not sure
Where it's going to get you?
it may just get us a filling of the rainy day fund without getting us
Got it.
to balance this. So that's the tricky part of the ultra rich.
So I started off sort of this thread of our conversation by asking you what grade would you give Lamont generally speaking. And before you answer that, let me throw in the local impact, which, is, well, it's serious. I mean, Wallingford under his plan, and this is what I want you to sort of grade, the overall plan, Wallingford is going to lose some money. I think the Record Journal reported it was about $1 million the first year and closer to $2 million the second year loss of state aid. This is part of his package. How do you handle this? Do you try to compromise it away? Do you look the other way? Do you vote
we're
no?
the equal partner, and we have
Yeah.
to work with him. And he has been very agreeable to working with him. So that's a nice thing. He's not headstrong. He's very open. And but we don't like some of this stuff, so we're going to have to sit down with him and have a series of negotiations, and that happens above my pay grade. It's usually our leaders, the speaker and the majority leader, go in and represent what we want to do, and then they argue and try to come to some agreement. So I'd give, if you were to letter grade him, I'd say at this point he's a C+, and he gets a good grade for effort, but some of these things are
Problematic.
deal breakers for me.
Okay.
And
So if you had to vote tomorrow and the budget as presented,
well, it
you're
won't
a
be
no.
this. It won't be this.
I know that.
No.
But if it
this
was,
is
you'd vote.
we're equal partners to the governor, and he has to come in, and by law he has to come in with a balanced package, and he just lays it on the desk, and then we look at it and we say, well,
That it's in your
we could
court.
do this, but we're definitely not doing this, and
Yeah.
and then we see where the consensus is for example, here's another one here. This one actually raises a lot of money, and I actually personally like this one, but other people in the legislature don't like it. This is a tax on soda, the high sugar sodas. Can you believe this? It raises $163 million.
Right.
Which
How
is,
much per can? Do you know?
it's 1.5 cents per ounce. So if you had a 16 ounce, it'd be 16 times 1.5 per ounce.
All right.
But the reason I actually like this one is that it encourages people to switch to healthier.
Sodas aren't good for you.
I know sodas aren't
Yeah,
good
that's
for you.
why, and it's a sin tax, right?
But
No.
the folks that represent poor towns say you're taking away the only fun that people have, which is occasionally they can go down and buy a Coca-Cola, and so they think it's mean. So
I don't know if that's fun, but
I mean, it's like a pleasure.
yeah, no, I
a
get it.
cheap
No, in
pleasure
fact,
for
I
them.
get a pleasure out of it every now and then too. But really, just a comment, which is, on one hand, people want a balanced budget.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you're a local legislator like Mary, and there's any aid being cut to your town, you're kind of put on the spot. How can you support that budget?
Which is what I'm trying to do here.
Right, but then I think what I'm trying to point out is how do you solve the state's fiscal problems if you have legislators who feel like they can't support a budget because it cuts aid? I mean, I don't want to spend the whole show, but the counter argument could be that yes, aid should be cut because people like Mayor Dickinson should run a more efficient operation.
Well,
and
we
this will
should-
force them to. So that's all I
But
wanted to point out.
What I'm trying to do, and I actually talked to a Republican today who was on the same page as me on this one. One of my bills is consolidated 911 service. What we have to do is more regional services,
But
which
that's small
makes it more
potatoes.
affordable.
I mean,
Well, the big potato, Mike, is the school system.
Yeah, right.
And we were trying to regionalize the small school districts. Wallingford is not considered a small school district,
Right.
but some of the Eastern Connecticut ones are really tiny.
Poked a hornet's nest on that, though.
And it was a hornet's nest, but each of these little districts has a superintendent.
I know.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And you could have a better school system by sharing the administration for a number of towns.
Well, we'll see how far that gets.
But that didn't fly so far. It's
No,
it was
it
very.
didn't.
I guess that the towns are worried that they're going to lose control over their school buildings and administration.
Let's switch completely to another topic, although it still involves money. Tolls.
Yes.
Where do you stand on the proposal?
Well, we can do it either way. And this is one of the survey questions. I've got 5 survey questions and then a bunch of budget priority choices.
Yeah, but want to know what you think on tolls.
Well, I think you have to pay for the system, and there's 2 ways to pay for it. You can either do tolls or you can do gas tax increase. Now, the gas tax increase for, first of all, the fund is going to be in a deficit in 2024. So that's
Not that far off.
not that far off. And it takes a few years to build the gantries if you're going to do tolls. That's why I'm polling people now. But the gas tax would have to be another 53 cents a gallon to not have the tolls. So I'm giving people the, pick this one or this one.
Pick your poison.
But you can't say none, because then you have, 2/3 of the bridges are more than 62 years old. The transit bridges are more than 100 years old on the rail line. And people are, the volume of traffic keeps increasing. You got people driving over these really old bridges, and something bad is going to happen. It already has, and it'll happen again if we continue to postpone. So I can't tell people, and honestly, that we don't have to do either one. Now, the Republicans have said, let's do this general bonding, and that'll pay for them. But general bonding is already taken up by school construction. All the economic development money is in there. The Small Business Express is in there. The town steep money is in there. The sewage treatment plant money is all in there. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to...
You're in deep with bonding already, is what I think your point
Boy, it's all committed already. Sure. So if you tried to go to Wall Street and say, we want to do our roads and bridges, and by the way, we're going to use general bonding, which is already booked, they're going to say, those aren't real finances, and they will not help us. So realistically, in an honest, truthful way, I tell my district in the survey that it's either this or it's that. So which one do you think is better?
Ralph.
Now, the advantage of the tolls is that 40% of it will be paid by out-of-state people. If we go with the gas tax, pretty much all be paid by us. So that in my mind, I think the tolls is a better deal, but I'm going to let them vote on this.
The toll issue came up at a Southington Town Council meeting this week,
Oh,
where
right.
the Republicans were really trying to politicize the whole toll issue, back the Democratic majority into a corner and say something publicly.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and it just reminded me how we have just tied ourselves up in this state in knots over tolls. And at the same time, right off the top of my head, Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey have had tolls for years. As far as I know, they've managed to grow economically and have tolls. In fact, Massachusetts is often pointed out as the economic engine of New England. Mm-hmm. So we're just wasting time here. We're just tying ourselves up in knots, fighting amongst each other over something that other states have done for years and survived.
And some states are doing privately run roads, but those are tolls also. They're just run by a private corporation.
Yeah. A very quick story on something Mary just said. So in the Toronto area, there's one of these private toll roads, and as you drive by, and it's rarely full. The 401, the Queen Elizabeth Expressway, all these things around Toronto, they're jammed and it's terrible. But if you get, I think it's called the 407, whatever it is, you get on this road and it's pretty clear. You can go 70 and people usually go 80. And they have these gantries that's supposed to read your plate. We've never gotten a bill.
Huh, interesting. They should be sending you a bill because they can...
Probably on that road every year for the last 25 years.
Maybe they think you're never going to...
bill.
Well, I've gotten bills from Massachusetts.
There you go.
They take a picture of my plate and I get the bill.
I feel
a week or two later.
I feel better about it. Let me change the subject altogether. I think probably the legalization of marijuana is on your questionnaire. We talked off camera a little bit. Your questionnaire is going to go out to a sampling, not to everybody in the area, but a sampling.
Yeah.
And a legalization of marijuana is on that.
Yep.
On that questionnaire. Where do you personally stand on that?
I personally do not want to do it. I'm personally opposed.
So you'd vote no? on legalization of marijuana.
That's the way I'm leaning right now, but I am
Okay.
surveying them. If it were to go, I would rather have it be above 25 years.
Yeah, but that's not going to be an alternative.
And they're not going to let me have that. They're
No.
going to do 21 because that's what liquor is.
Yeah, and you're a no
And
vote then.
Yeah, so I'm a no vote. But the issue for me is that it does affect brain development. We have plenty of medical studies that show that, and we are impairing the brains of young people who we need to be at their best.
More than beer, which was my drug of choice when I was that age.
Well, to be honest,
To excess many times.
Right. No, I think
On
that's an excellent
weekends.
point.
actually,
Before age 20.
alcohol should really be 25 also for the same reason,
Okay.
because of the brain development.
Yeah.
But that's really my number one concern. My secondary concern is we don't have a good test for impaired drivers yet, and it's going to be tough to do the enforcement when, alcohol we do. It's pretty clear. You're either above or you're not.
Yeah.
But we don't have a comparable test for impaired drivers under the influence of marijuana. So that's another problem for me.
Yeah. So,
I didn't even tell you guys, the last poll and the one before that, the last two, it came back exactly 50-50 in Wallingford. It's exactly 50-50.
so if Wallingford came back 55%, I'm making it intentionally close to
Yes.
make it a difficult question.
Yeah.
If Wallingford comes back 55% want it legalized, you personally don't. Now what?
Good
How do
question.
you vote?
Good question. Good question. We could wait a year and
Yeah.
see how Massachusetts is handling theirs,
Right.
and see have them do the mistakes first before we do it. In other words, it doesn't have to be this year.
Right.
We could wait a little while and see how to make it more foolproof before we do it. My gut instinct on this is that eventually it will be legal across the whole United States. But right now we still have some issues. We have some problems here.
So,
The edibles in particular are a big problem because you don't know what the dosage is.
Yeah.
And if a kid eats one, they may get in Colorado, where they also sell the edibles. They had 3 times the emergency room visits
Yeah.
after the legalization because people did not know what they were dosing themselves with. They didn't know how high the dose was.
Are the votes there in Hartford to legalize it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
It's in New Jersey. They thought they had the votes, and it just failed.
So my political advice to you, if the poll comes back, if your survey comes back 55% in favor of it, my political advice is just call it within the margin of error and vote no. Never mind. Never mind.
We could wait a while. Watch Massachusetts. They're just putting their foot in this, and
Okay.
let them make the first mistakes, and then we could fix our bill accordingly. But right now, I'm a no on that. But I do want to see if their opinion has changed or if they're still split. If I were to ask I don't ask the age on the survey. I just get the information back. But if I were to guess, the younger voters are
In favor of legalization, yeah.
and the older voters are not.
Let me change topics and talk about the issue of juvenile delinquents breaking into cars, stealing cars, going on joyrides. It's been an issue in Wallingford. There was a segment of the town council meeting, I think back in January, devoted to this issue. Can you bring us up to date as to what is happening in Hartford on this issue? Where do you think it's going to go? And where do you think it should go?
Okay. The Public Safety Committee has done bills on this, and the Judiciary Committee also. And I'm starting to figure out from talking to the chairman of different committees, and appropriations I've also been talking to, that most of the young thieves are actually from Waterbury. And the tip-off there is that the Waterbury rate of car theft has skyrocketed. The other big cities, the rate is dropping. So New Haven, Hartford, Bridgeport, it's dropping, but Waterbury is shooting up. So there's a particular problem with kids there. And I also found out that DCF last year, Department of Children and Families, eliminated some of the diversion programs that we used to have for the...
Explain what a diversion program is.
Diversion program is for first or second time offenders, such as people who are arrested for DUI. Sometimes the judge will say, I want you to go to an education course and face victims of drunk driving and see the error of your ways, and then, we'll check in with you again. And then if you do everything that the judge said, then they drop the charge on you, erase the record. So what we used to have until last year is a diversion program for young thieves that the judge would say, you're just a kid, you still can turn your life around, and they would divert them into this other program. And then people would work with them to straighten out their life and put them in some job training. And
Trying to save them.
try to save them before they get to be a hardcore criminal.
Yeah.
So some of the bills that are in front of us say you get 2 strikes and then you go to adult prison. But we know from past practice that adult prison doesn't fix these kids. They just get to be worse young adult thieves. And whereas the diversion programs, which are actually cheaper per kid, actually have a better outcome. So the diversion programs have to go back into the budget. They were taken out. And there's a program in Litchfield County called, now I'm trying to remember their name. Well, anyway, it's in Northwest Connecticut, in Litchfield County, and they take kids and work with them all summer and try to get them back on a straight job and income-producing life so that they have mentors and they do the right thing. So if we can divert these kids again, we should see good results. But sending a kid to an adult prison with adult prisoners who are much more hardened than these kids are, we've found in the past does not work well.
Ralph.
Well, I find the car break-in story, and this is just a comment and observation,
Yeah.
just fascinating. Because I would say there is no story over the past 5 years that we have written about more across all our towns. I mean, we have stories within towns, but this is one that just completely crosses all the borders of the towns we cover. Police are constantly dealing with it, and I'm interested because I'm interested in why this has been given such a high priority. Because clearly, if you look at crime in the towns that we cover, car break-ins is way behind just your run-of-the-mill larceny, drug violations, home break-ins, and I would say general domestic disputes. So there's all these crimes that are much more prevalent, but yet the police like to single this out, residents like to single it out, local lawmakers, and now the state. And I'm not sure I understand why. So I have some theories on why, but
Well, I'm going to have offer you a thought, and then I'll go to Mary,
Yeah.
and we'll go around the table. I think issues get trendy, become very, very current, and there's somewhat of a bandwagon effect, and is often triggered by real life, real time frustration. That in a neighborhood that gets hit hard,
absolutely.
and that neighborhood does and should, and we've seen it in Wallingford, organize and speak with a very strong voice. And when that happens, that's a good and healthy thing. Public officials should respond. They do respond, and how they respond is a real tell. Do they sort of say, well, we're going to increase law enforcement, and if so, we need some money, or maybe we don't? Do we say, blame it on Hartford? Blame it on Hartford. So change the law, and then attention diverts to Hartford. I don't know, but I think it's social media. It becomes very current. People get organized. They're frustrated, and they want to see a change. They want to see a result. And the result that they want to see is oftentimes someone saying, when we catch them, we're not going to release them on, they have a right to bail, but we're not going to release them, and we're going to lock them up and throw away the key until, whatever, so they can't steal another car again. And that's a very satisfying answer to some.
To some, yeah, right.
To
no,
some.
I
It's a very
that's good.
satisfying answer. Mary.
Well, cars are really important to people. This is their way to get to work. It really is like part of their house. It's a personal possession, very important.
Yeah.
So they do get, and and the day that some Waterbury kid steals my car, I'll be very upset too. That being said, we have to implement what works. And I know the police chief is worried about people being released and coming back and doing it again.
Well,
but
they have
that's
to be released you can't hold them preventively.
No, but you could set up the diversion program again. If we did have it, suddenly we didn't have it because of budget, it should be back. We know it works and when it's effective, and we should use it. And then the other thing is that there is a change in technology in how you lock the cars, and you use the fobs now instead of the key. And people also have to be reminded to bring the fob in the house. And I know there was one case where the thieves came in the house and got the fob. But generally speaking, if you don't leave your fob in your car, you're better off lock the car, bring the fob in with you. And but the technology makes it easy for people to leave the key under their
somewhere
calendar or something and then
Kids
it makes
find
it easy for a kid to get in there. So
Rob.
I think your answers are excellent, and I guess just two quick thoughts. One, on a regular basis, we are covering both men and women who are arrested in domestic violence cases, who have repeatedly offended, and they're not. No one's saying lock them up and throw away the key. And I don't, with all due respect to what's going on in Hartford.
That's a rhetorical overreach
right,
on my
right,
part.
right. That's
by the
right,
way.
right. Okay. I think it's a good point. And I don't mean, so, and then number two, there's an interesting narrative that has emerged on this story just really in the last year in the suburbs, which is people in the suburbs are convinced that these crimes are not being committed by local teens. And for some reason, that makes them even angrier about this.
well, that's probably correct. They're from what I've learned today, the perpetrators are largely from Waterbury.
That may be. But what is it like? We definitely know that the domestic violence in our towns is committed by local people usually. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, that doesn't have the visceral reaction that the suburbs have to the notion of people coming from New Haven or Waterbury or Bridgeport to steal their car. And I'm just pointing it out.
So we're not going to solve this today. I don't.
This will be solved this year, and it might even be a bipartisan bill.
Won't be solved. It'll be addressed.
It'll be addressed,
Yeah.
and we will have more tools after this session.
Yeah.
I can see that the three committees working together on this, and something will happen.
So next week we have Craig Fishman
Yes,
on the
I
show.
saw
He's
his
a co-sponsor. He's a co-sponsor of one of the bills that would tweak procedure, and we'll save that conversation for Craig and
I'm waiting.
Get his perspective.
Senator
on it.
Fasano has a bill on it too.
Yeah, ton of bills and a lot of co-sponsors on these bills. Let's change the subject to an area, Mary, that you all your life, as far as I know, have been very passionate about the environment, and very deep interest in trying to tackle environmental problems and make the earth a better place for everyone. And now that the Democrats have a solid grip, really, in Hartford, maybe some of these ideas get more traction, maybe not. Let me get to some specific stuff. There is a bill that seems important in concept, but I don't know how much traction it's going to get. It's 1064, an act establishing a carbon price for fossil fuels sold in Connecticut. The purpose is to establish a carbon price. That's a tax on
it's
probably
already
natural gas, diesel, gasoline, home heating oil. And you're one of the co-sponsors of the bill. as I understand the principle, and as I'm done with this little monologue, I'm going to go to you and set us straight. The idea is through pricing, which is sort of a market force, to encourage people to go to sustainable, to solar, to wind,
Cleaner
for
fuels.
for their energy needs. It's still a tax and it raises the price, but that only works if you can go to sustainable energy, wind and solar, if it's available. You got furious pushback on this. We'll get into that in a minute, but I wanted to stop and get your take on what I've said so far.
It already didn't make it out of the Environment Committee.
So that ends it. Okay.
Yeah, it's I'm working with a number of other states on the East Coast, and we are all trying to pass a similar version of it so there won't be border competition.
Oh, yeah.
But they're not moving. Now, in Canada, several provinces already have this, and it already is shifting the fuels from the dirtier fuels to the cleaner fuels. And then, eventually, as it keeps going down the years, you would shift to wind and solar and geothermal. So you start out with one fee and it's higher on the dirtier fuels and lower on the cleaner fuels. And then over time, the market pushes people to get a more efficient furnace or to change their fuel from a dirty one to a cleaner one. And we have only 12 years left, according to the latest scientific research, to affect climate change. After 12 years from now, it becomes an unstoppable problem. And then it becomes a nightmare for our kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
So that's why the states are working on this. But so far, Canada is the only successful story here. However, Mike, we
Yes,
do have
Mary.
a wind energy bill that is doing really well.
Okay.
And
you can have windmills
offshore,
off on Saybrook?
yeah, offshore wind.
Okay. Do the people live in Saybrook Point know about this? Or
Well, it'll probably be out in the
off Montauk?
big ocean,
Okay.
not in Long Island Sound.
Okay. Not Long Island Sound.
But the idea would be to generate wind power and then put that on the grid.
Well, on the issue of cars, I think if you wanted to get people away from, let's say, gasoline, because gasoline creates emissions, you have to have an electric car. I don't know what the energy costs of creating, manufacturing, selling an electric car are well beyond the scope of this show. But we don't have electric cars. A lot of people
But they're
can't
coming.
afford them.
No, they're coming, though.
Yeah, those are the people that ought to be taxed 0.5% or something.
Right.
Well, you're talking about the Tesla people, but there are cheaper versions coming.
All right. Let's move away from that, and it's maybe a success story, I think. Single-use styrofoam containers.
Yeah, that got out of committee.
That got out of committee, so
Yeah.
that could pass.
Yeah,
And
that's because the towns can't really handle it. They're light. They're a lot of air trapped inside, and so it doesn't. The towns can't sell that and make any money off it. It's more of a nuisance for the towns. And then when they get loose, they blow around and end up at the beach and
so
in the rivers.
by when, under these proposals, by when would single-use styrofoam containers be
I don't have that bill in front of me, Mike, but I
like
think
2 years, 5 years?
I think it's a year later,
Okay.
but I actually don't have the bill here.
I may, but I didn't.
We
get
generally
to that
give a phase-out
granularity.
time. There's
Yeah.
another bill that got out of committee that will ban free plastic bags, but allow the
Let me
paper
stay with
ones.
styrofoam just for a second.
Okay.
I'm a restaurant owner. Mm-hmm. A lot of my business is to go, and this was testimony, that was offered in opposition to the bill.
Yep.
They didn't like it, and they say some restaurants can't afford substitute containers for to-go meals. What's the answer to that?
Well, you can use a takeout box that is the pressed cardboard, and it's going to cost a few cents more per container, which would go into the price of the meal.
That's right.
But on the other hand, that material is compostable, and it's not not a problem for the municipalities. The municipalities are having trouble right now because the material that used to go to China is no longer accepted by China. So now we're scrambling to try to find places to produce something out of this material in the US of A because it's no longer going to be accepted overseas.
Yeah. Ralph, what do you think about that? Banning single-use styrofoam. Your takeout meal, your meals at the restaurant you go to may go up a titch.
I'm okay with it.
You're okay with it?
I think, listen, would I love everything to stay the same? But we're dealing with climate change here. We're dealing with the environment.
And litter, yeah.
It's small sacrifices, styrofoam containers, plastic bags, no more paper towels in restrooms. I would be willing to do all that stuff.
Plastic bags, I cut you off on that, but I wanted you to finish your thought on,
Yeah,
on that.
a bill just came out of Environment Committee the other day, which bans them, made the free ones after, let's see, a year from now. So you could get the paper ones, or you could pay for plastic, but wouldn't be any more free plastic bags.
Yeah. Good, we're in favor of that.
Yeah, no,
Our
I
show
think
when
that's
Steve
great.
Knight was on,
that thing in the ocean.
that's right.
Well,
As big
the
as
sea
Texas.
creature, yeah, they just had a necropsy on a whale that had like 80 pounds of plastic in it. It just gradually starved to death, and they're again a problem for the municipalities to have this stuff blowing around and getting into the parks and all.
So there's another bill, 6746, introduced by Mary Mushinsky, an act concerning a local education tax for public education. A statement of purpose to authorize boards of education to impose a local education tax for the purpose of funding public education.
I think I put.
Who in Wallingford wanted that?
I think that one was the mayor's. I think
Mayor
I put
wants that.
I think that was his. I put it in for him.
The mayor would like to get the mill rate for education off his portfolio, out of his portfolio.
Wow.
Well,
That's a shock.
You can ask him about that, but
Yeah,
I'm
but,
almost
well,
certain that
yes.
was his request.
So let's say
It's
this,
an interesting idea.
a lot of pushback I saw.
Oh yeah, and, yeah.
It's not going to go anywhere.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. But under this proposal, if it was law, do you think taxes would go up? The education component of taxes would go up, stay the same, or go down if boards of education had the power to do this?
Not sure. I'm not even sure who does it in the US of A. But it's an interesting idea. He wanted
I would just
to
remind,
float the idea, so I put it in there to see what would happen.
And is it a good idea from your personal view?
Well, I have no objection to testing an idea. You know, if it's good, it'll pass eventually. And
But
if it's
your personal view, should it pass?
I don't have a view on this because I'm not a mayor.
Okay.
But I don't have an objection to airing an idea to
All right.
see how it flies.
I would just remind our viewers and those of us at the table here that the Board of Education at San Menzo on April 1 is going to roll out the school facilities study update. Who knows what the numbers would be? I've been rounding the most expensive proposal up, rounding it up to 150 million. I mean, for purpose of this discussion tonight, because we'll know in a few days, let's say it's 100 million. And, you know, if they have the power to tax, we have 4 new renovated schools in my view. And there isn't too much you can do about it, you know?
Well, and it's a longer discussion.
Much longer.
Right, but
We've been chipping away at it.
I know, but I
Yeah.
think also too that if you did this, it would change. See, I think this worries some people when they look at their current school board and their current superintendent. And that's not to say Wallingford, and that's not to pick, but I think in general, wherever you sit, when you look at your school board and you look at your superintendent, this may sound like a bad idea. My hope is that this change would also change school boards, the dynamics between boards, superintendents. So I don't see it as like plugging in these people under that system.
Well, will in the short
Okay,
term.
all right. It would in the short term. You're right. It would.
Yeah. But it's interesting that the mayor was interested in this proposal. Let me change the subject.
Well, that is the big ticket item in a municipal budget.
Oh, yeah,
Education
60,
is the big item.
65% in that range. There's an act that seems to be getting a lot of attention and traction, and that's this debt-free college proposal.
Yeah, that got voted out of committee just the other day.
Yeah, I was following that, and I'm going to just give my monologue and then go to you. It seems that for kids in community college, there's a couple of different strategies through grants that their tuition could be paid for. I mean, one bill might deal with 2 years, and another bill, you know, the balance of the 4-year education, you know, that kind of thing. But they could cobble together these grants and have a debt-free college education. Mary, when we go over to you, I would like you to address the cost of this. Has it been costed out?
No, it's on its way to appropriations where it will get a fiscal note attached to it. It just came out of Higher Education
Okay.
and Employment Enhancement Committee, which I serve on. And the idea is to use a little state money plus a bigger push on FAFSA, getting the parents to apply for FAFSA.
What's that?
That is the financial aid form that you fill out about your family's income, and then you can get grant money with that sometimes, or scholarships. And some of the families do it and some of the families do not. And we have, on the community college level, about 60% of the families are taking advantage of it. And also, they're also able to get money that way to put their child through community college debt-free. But then about 30% or 40% are not taking advantage, and they're struggling to complete community college. Whereas, or they may take longer time to complete it. They might be in there for several years, which is a strain on the college and on the family and on the student. Whereas if we can get them in and out of there 2 years, they're on their way to a job, and it's just
What
better
would-
for the state.
What would this bill do?
We would have a fund that would help them, would supplement the part they can't pay, and also assist them with the FAFSA. So they would be able to get in and out 2 years with debt-free education.
Okay.
And some of the other states are starting to offer this too, so we're
But it
competing with
would
other
depend
states.
every 2 years on the willingness of the legislature to appropriate the money.
Yeah, well, how I would do it, now there's one version here that went to appropriations, but when I was on program review and investigations, which no longer exists, we had looked at a model in, I think it was Oregon, where they have a revolving fund that's used for this purpose. And so in the Oregon case, the graduates, let's see how they do it. They set it up with bonding money to get it started, but then it was a perpetual fund, and it was able to keep going. So we haven't actually written the fund part yet, and I'm not sure how it's going to come out, if it'll come out like Oregon or it'll be our own version.
Well, we got to see if it costs 1 million, 50 million, or 100 million,
But
before
the payoff is that you give these people a little bit of help and some training on FAFSA, and then they get out of school and they are debt free. They can go to work, they
Yeah, I
can
know.
get married, they can buy a house. A lot of kids, young graduates today, can't get married, they can't have kids, and they can't buy a house because they got this enormous
No, we
debt
get it.
hanging around their
No,
neck like a
we-
millstone.
Yeah, we get it.
So, if we can get them going where they're debt free, a certain percentage of them, it's good for the state.
So I got one more topic, which may be the last because we're running out of time. And I was shocked to understand from reading this House Bill 5961, which has to do with the extension of municipal water service, that in Wallingford, the South Broad Street
Yeah.
water main extension, do you remember that? There were like 4 or 5 families. I think it might be 10 years
Yes,
ago.
Yeah.
They had contaminated water,
Right.
and there was this long negotiation with the state and surveys and easements and all kinds of stuff, and grants put in, and I mean, it just seemed like it was over. It seemed like, and now I read this, and there's a
needs
loose
a-
end of
Yeah,
$160,000.
it needs a fix, but I think we can fix it. It's
But why does it need a fix?
because this is not actually my constituencies. This was former Representative Mary Fritz's constituents, but I knew about the case.
Sure.
Was following
It's
the
in
case.
Record Journal a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's Greg Fishbein's district. But in any case, the original bill that Mary passed had a time frame in it, and then a grant and aid to be spent within the time frame. The town did not finish the work within the time frame, so now they're not eligible for reimbursement. But if I can persuade the finance committee to change the language of the original deal, they will get an extended time to get the reimbursement paid. So that's what I'm trying to do now, is to
Okay, good luck. It's a joint
Get that
effort
wording
with you and Vince Candelora and Len Pisano and Craig Fishbein.
yeah, we're
You're all
going to try to fix it.
$166,332 because the town didn't get it done in time. So we got 3 minutes maybe for the paid family medical leave program. I believe you're a co-introducer or
Yeah, I'm
a co-sponsor on this. Does this have a shot at?
Yeah, I'd say it does.
And my understanding, after talking with Liz Linehan and just general reading, is after the initial period where seed money might be needed, will it be written into the law that it's to be paid for totally by employees?
Yeah, the employees would, like we do now for unemployment insurance.
Yeah.
But this would be 0.5% on their paycheck, and it goes into this fund, and then you can tap this fund when you have a new baby or
Right.
your spouse gets sick and they have to go to cancer treatment or whatever. And in the states that have this, the average time period that people use it for is 7 weeks. It could be more or less, but that's the average people use it for. And they use it for some critical health
Yeah.
thing that impacts their family.
Well, the rate at which wages are replaced might matter. So if you replace wages at 100%, people might stay out longer. If you
Yeah,
replace
this is a
wages
sliding
at
scale.
50%,
This is a
okay.
sliding scale. So
Yeah.
the average is 79%. But
When you say average, you mean of states that have this? Is that what you mean by average?
no,
Or-
if in the bill that's running now,
Okay.
the average person, it would be a 79%. If you're a low-wage person, it would be 95%.
I gotcha.
If that'd be the lowest wage.
Okay.
You know, people work at fast food place or something, and then the people that make a high wage, it's down to 56%.
So Ralph, as an employer, as a boss, any fears, any concerns that if this passes,
The world
won't
is
be
going to
able-
end.
you won't put out a paper?
No, I
You
think
just-
that, as Mary said, it sounds like something similar to unemployment, and I don't think the world's going to end. I don't want to say that, you do run into problems even with unemployment and at times, but I think businesses can work it out in some way.
Mary, would this reach all employers, even employer of one person? Or is,
I don't know, Mike,
different
because I'm
iterations of
not
the-
working on this version.
Okay.
It's a labor committee that's
And
working on it. So
the odds of something passing, how would you judge that?
I think they're good.
Better
But-
than 50%?
I'm not sure because I don't have the count.
Okay.
But I know there's more support in the House than in the Senate.
Okay.
But still, I think it's got a pretty good shot. It's an idea that's not so bizarre in Europe.
Right.
And then I think we have 6 states that have it also. So it is catching on. I mean, it does. When you have a family member that needs your help, it's very stressful, especially if you're a low-wage person. You want to stay home and help your family member, but on the other hand, you can't not work for 7 weeks. You can't survive.
Yeah.
So they make they have this difficult trade-off to do, and it would be nice if they could tap this fund and take care of their family member without a lot of stress over them.
Yeah.
It's stronger. It strengthens the family really if you can do this.
Let's make that the final
Sure.
word. Yeah. Mary Mushinsky, thanks for coming on the Citizen Mike Show.
Mm-hmm.
We learned a lot, and it's always interesting talking to you and getting
Yeah,
your
it's
insights.
interesting to talk to you guys too.
So,
And people should fill out their survey if they get it. They can also fill it out on the computer. They don't have to mail it back. They can
There
do
you
it
go.
online.
okay. And thank you, dear viewers, for watching the Citizen Mike Show. We're here on Wednesday nights, but you can watch it on WPA Thursday, Fridays, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays at 9. And so, as we used to say many times, if it's 9 at night, it's Citizen Mike. So, and that's still true, but you can also watch the Citizen Mike Show on YouTube. It's posted up, I don't know, a couple days after we produce. Go to your YouTube site and punch in the Citizen Mike Wallingford channel, follow all the prompts, and watch us on YouTube's. Or we can send you a link directly to that YouTube production. Just let us know you want it. Contact me directly or WPAA. And thanks again to Mary Mushinsky. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Ralph.
you.